Hello and welcome again to BAI, the Soulcast. This is episode 11, with a focus on uncertainty and on mystery, on what the rabbinic tradition calls Hirhurim, which is an interesting word. I'll talk more about it in a bit. A word that expresses all of that, uncertainty and mystery. Mind wandering, moving from here to there. The exemplar of all of this, as he is the exemplar of so much else in our tradition, is our ancestor Abraham, who is the featured character in the next number of parashiot, the next number of sections of the Torah. Drawing from Aviva Zornberg's brilliant discussion of this coming week's Parsha, Lech Lecha, want to expand out a concept, a description, both of Abraham and I think of our experience of us as well. Here's an opening sentence for you. In the space and time that are his freedom, he contemplates the possible meanings of mystery. What a wonderful phrase, what a wonderful sentence that is. We have some freedom, and we get to experience that freedom in space and time, in real space. And what this exemplar, the founder, really, of our tradition as we understand it, does with that freedom is to contemplate the possible meanings of mystery. I mentioned the Hebrew word Hirhurim a little bit earlier. And a number of midrashim, a number of rabbinic stories about Abraham, make use of that word. The rabbis suggest that at some key points in Abraham's biography, he has that experience of Hirhurim, of not being entirely certain of where he stands, of how he feels. That feeling and sense of uncertainty, I think, is something that so many of us are feeling right about now. In these days, over these months. There is a passive form of Hirhurim. Zornberg translates the word as qualms. She's actually quoting Rashi, the 11th century commentator, who describes some of the tests that Abraham faces as tests that are put in place in order for God to see whether Abraham has qualms about the promises that God has made. But it's the more active version of Hirhurim that I really find most interesting. Zornberg again calls that active form an expression of an imaginative, passionate level of consciousness. Abraham, in other words, and we, too, are engaged and have questions. Questions that ought not be faulted, on the contrary, and again, quoting Zornberg, questions that might lead to an unfolding of meaning in our lives, in the world, in God's response. Those kinds of questions, that kind of imaginative, passionate level of consciousness, really does have to do with an unexpected range of responses in our imaginations. An openness, as Zornberg puts it, to many possible implications in what has just happened to us. Abraham, she writes, is concerned for eternity. He knows himself responsible for providing scaffolding for the future. We too, concerned for eternity. And I can't speak for anybody else, but I very much feel responsible for providing scaffolding for the future. So let's talk a little bit about the word itself, here, hor. The Hebrew letters are hey, resh, hey, resh. It's a doubled root. And in that doubled form, this root suggests things like vagueness. Or, again, Zornberg's words, an inchoate dream state that precedes cognition. That moment in time, in other words, when a picture starts to emerge, but it's not entirely in focus. That image, which I really love, of kind of a fuzzy picture, and then it comes into focus. But it's in that moment of fuzziness that these hir horim exist, this imaginative, passionate level of consciousness. Just to add a little bit on the image level of it, I wear corrective lenses, glasses. I've worn glasses since I'm 5 years old. So when I wake up in the morning, I have the experience of opening my eyes and seeing but not quite seeing. What's in front of me is visible but fuzzy and vague, and it's only when I then put my glasses on that things come into focus. It's that moment before the glasses get put on that the word hir hor describes. That kind of vagueness and inchoate dream state that precedes cognition. But the root, hir hor, hey resh, is also the same root that gives us the words for gestation and conception and pregnancy. Hir hor, in other words, is a wandering of mind that is filled with possibility. It's at the opposite pole, Zornberg writes, from the act, which is to say, it's a heated, fluid state in which many things are implicit, as opposed to the crystallized realization. And then she offers up an idea that I have been sitting with all week, and that really blows my mind. Fantasy is more powerful than reality because it answers more adequately to the infinite demands of the spirit. Anyone who's ever spent any time fantasizing, I think may agree that fantasy is more powerful than reality. Which of course also makes it really dangerous. Abraham possesses what Zornberg calls an anarchic range of consciousness. Anarchic. I'm having a hard time pronouncing that word. I'm sorry. There's an anarchy about his thoughts. They're all over the place. They wander from here to there. But she then adds that each state of hir horim, of this imaginative, passionate level of consciousness, while apparently formless and open-ended, still has its coloration and implicit form. The wanderings of Abraham's mind, the wanderings of our minds, are probably not out of character. They end up being about the things that are at the core of who we are. They express, in their anarchic style, the central paradoxes of our own destinies, of our own being. So all of this, I think, really has to do with what religious life is really about, or spiritual life. One's knowledge of God is actually not the result of an orderly process of inquiry. Rather, it's the informing passion of a life in which all forms are to be deconstructed. Zornberg again. This has been a lot of Zornberg. Aviva Zornberg, by the way, is the author of now a series of studies of individual Torah portions, organized by the books of the Torah. And the first volume is her book on Genesis, which is called The Beginning of Desire. One of the blurbs on the back really puts it best. Zornberg is a genre unto herself. Her commentaries are filled with psychoanalysis and rich literary reading of both the biblical text and of rabbinic and later Kabbalistic and Hasidic commentary. So here's a piece of rabbinic commentary. The Midrash, in a volume called Tanchuma, so a relatively late Midrash, says the following about Abraham. He sewed the whole world together in the presence of God. He was like a person who tears apart and sews together. He goes back and forth, in other words, between taking things apart, perhaps in order to analyze them, in order to understand them, and then putting them back together. And when you engage in that kind of a process, you actually get to uncover further mysteries and arrive, hopefully, at deeper understanding and also resolution. One of the thinkers whom Zornberg quotes is a man named Thomas Kuhn, who wrote a famous book called The Structure of Scientific Revolution. It's a book I read in rabbinical school, actually, assigned by my beloved teacher, Rabbi Neil Gilman, who wanted us to understand from Kuhn the way in which large, imaginative, mythic structures work, paradigms, Rabbi Gilman used to call them. And those paradigms sometimes break down. And then we have to figure out a way to put them back together, or to come up with a new paradigm that enables us to live, to move forward. Kuhn's words that Zornberg quotes are really resonant. In that moment, a scientist, a thinker, a person of spirit may often seem like an individual searching at random. I read those words again this week and thought, wow, I feel a lot like a person searching at random. And then Zornberg's next sentence was a source of great reassurance to me, at least, and I hope to you as well. In the current generated between the two poles of rending and rendering, there is intensified life. Well, these weeks, this time, have surely been intense. And life, in so many ways, feels intensified. Filled with uncertainty, filled with hirhurim, with qualms, with this anarchy of consciousness, this inchoate dream state and vagueness, which is also imaginative and passionate. Feels like the moment that we're in, the time that we're in right now. So I've been thinking a lot about what matches musically here. And I want to offer you a couple of things. Actually, three things. The great George Harrison classic, on side one of Abbey Road for those of a certain generation. We'll start with something, and it's in particular the refrain, I don't know, that is at the heart of that song for me. And then a classic of Israeli rock and roll, Donnie Sanderson's song Lo Noda, the unknown, that which is unknown. And finally, I've got a beautiful Eva Cassidy piece for you, the late Eva Cassidy, and a song about autumn leaves. Enjoy the music. Thank you so much for being here, and look forward to seeing you again at BAI, the Soulcast.
Attracts me like no other lover. Something in the way she woos me. I don't want to leave her now. You know I believe in how. Somewhere in her smile she knows that I don't need no other lover. Something in her style that shows me I don't want to leave her now. You know I believe in how. You're asking me will my love grow? I don't know, I don't know. You stick around now, it may show. I don't know, I don't something in the way she knows, and all I have to do is think of her. Something in the things she shows me. I don't want to leave her now. You know I believe in how.
הולכים אל הלא נודע, אל הלא נודע, אל הלא נודע. הולכים אל הלך תדע, אם זה טוב או רע, שם בלא נודע. בלי לדעת את גורלנו, או מה יהיה, כל אחד מנחש קדימה. עד היכן שהוא רואה, הולכים אל הלא נודע, אל
The falling leaves drift by my window. The falling leaves of red and gold. I see your the summer kisses, the sunburned hands I used to hold. Since you went away, the days grow long. Soon I'll hear old winter's song, but I miss you most of all, my darling. When start to fall, since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I'll hear old winter's song, but I miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start to fall, I miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start